Ladies and gentlemen, if you've ever wondered why some women barely try and yet men fall for them effortlessly, while others give everything and still get overlooked, listen closely, because the difference isn't luck, beauty, or timing. It's one simple shift that makes a man's heart lock onto you in a way he can't explain and can't escape. And once you understand this, you won't chase love ever again. Love will start chasing you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've ever wondered what truly makes a man fall in love, not just fascinated, not temporarily hooked, but deeply committed, you must understand one timeless truth. Real connection isn't built on perfection, performance, or pretending to be someone you're not. It's built on the magnetic force of authenticity, confidence, and emotional presence. When you embody these qualities, you don't chase love, you command it. A man falls in love when he feels something around you that he cannot find anywhere else. Not because you're the most beautiful woman he's ever met, not because you're trying too hard to impress him, but because being with you awakens a version of himself he genuinely admires. When he looks at you and feels inspired to rise into a better man, that is when his heart begins to open. When he senses that you see not just who he is, but who he could be, love becomes irresistible. He falls in love when you show him that your life is full, meaningful, and rich with purpose. When he sees you living your passions, nurturing your friendships, setting goals, and prioritizing yourself, he feels drawn to a woman who doesn't rely on him to feel complete. Men don't fall for women who make them their entire world. They fall for women who have a world of their own. A woman who gives him the gift of wanting to be a part of hers, not because she needs him, but because her life is already so vibrant that he longs to share it. A man falls in love when you have standards, real, unwavering standards. When you show him that you will not accept breadcrumbs, half effort, or inconsistency. When you communicate what you want with clarity and grace, rather than fear that you'll push him away. Because when a man is serious about you, boundaries don't scare him, they secure him. They tell him that you value yourself deeply and that you expect the same from him. And nothing makes a man step up more than a woman who knows how she deserves to be treated. He falls in love when you appreciate him, not for what he gives you, not for what he can do for you, but for who he is at his core. When you acknowledge his effort, notice his intentions, and genuinely see the good in him, you activate something powerful inside him. Men fall in love through admiration and emotional reassurance. When he feels safe to be vulnerable with you, when he feels that his heart isn't at risk of being judged or dismissed, he begins to open up in ways he never has before. A man falls in love when you're playful, when you laugh, tease him gently, challenge him, and make moments together feel alive. The world can be heavy, responsibilities endless, and pressure unrelenting. But when he's with you and finds a sense of ease, when he remembers what joy feels like, he attaches the emotion of happiness to your presence. Being with you becomes an escape, not from life, but into something more meaningful. He falls in love when you communicate with emotional intelligence, when you share your feelings openly without attacking him, when you express your needs without guilt, when you listen without rushing to defend. Men crave connection but often don't know how to express it. When you create an environment where his emotions can breathe, where his fears and hopes can be spoken without shame, you become the home his heart has been searching for. A man falls in love when you move at a pace that reflects your value. When you're not afraid to let things unfold naturally, without forcing, without rushing, without trying to secure a future overnight. Men fall in love in the space you allow, not the pressure you apply. When he sees that you are comfortable with the journey, secure in yourself and confident in what you bring, he begins to desire a deeper commitment on his own. He falls in love when you celebrate your femininity, not the superficial ideas of it, but the grace, strength, compassion, and emotional depth that make you uniquely you. When you embrace the softness that complements his strength, when you let yourself be cared for, supported, and adored without feeling the need to prove anything, he feels a natural pull toward you. You awaken his instinct to protect, cherish, and stand beside you, not because you're fragile, but because your energy invites closeness. A man falls in love when you demonstrate loyalty, not blind loyalty, but the kind that shows you're building something with integrity. When you are consistent in your words and actions, when you stand by your principles, when you show him that you are trustworthy, he begins to envision a future with you. Loyalty is not about staying no matter what. It's about showing up with the same heart and intention that you expect in return. He falls in love when you allow him to contribute to your happiness, not take over your life, not control you, but add to it. When you let him help, let him support you, let him show up in ways that make him feel valuable, you give him purpose. Men bond through contribution. When they feel they can make your life better, even in small ways, they feel connected, needed, and emotionally invested. A man falls in love when you don't try to impress him with things outside of yourself, but instead let him experience the depth of who you are. The way you think, the way you feel, the way you stand up for yourself, the way you dream, the way you love. When you bring authenticity instead of a facade, presence instead of pretense, confidence instead of insecurity, he begins to see that what you offer is rare. He falls in love when your energy is peaceful, not chaotic. When you don't create drama to feel validated, when you don't turn small issues into battles or use emotional manipulation to gain control, when he feels peace with you, calm with you, and stability with you, he can imagine a life with you. A man's heart attaches where his soul feels rested. He falls in love when you make him feel chosen, not out of desperation, but out of genuine desire. When you show him that he matters to you, when you express gratitude for his presence, when you make him feel special in a world that constantly tells him to be strong, silent, and stoic. A man wants to feel wanted, not needed. And when you show him that being with him is a choice, not a necessity, love becomes the most natural response. A man falls in love when you respect yourself, your time, your body, your emotions, your goals, when you don't abandon your dreams just to fit into his, when you don't shrink yourself to make him feel bigger. When you stand tall in who you are, you become unforgettable. He falls for the woman who doesn't need permission to be powerful and who inspires him to rise with her. He falls in love when your love is not transactional but intentional, when you give without keeping score, when you care because it's who you are, not because you expect something in return. When you offer emotional warmth, encouragement, and presence without overextending or sacrificing yourself, you create a bond that feels both safe and uplifting. A man falls in love when you remain a mystery, not because you're hiding, but because you're evolving. When he sees that you're constantly growing, learning, and becoming a better version of yourself, he feels the excitement of discovering you again and again. He falls for the journey of getting to know you, not just the initial spark. And most importantly, a man falls in love when you love yourself, because the way you treat yourself teaches him how to treat you. The way you speak to yourself teaches him how to speak to you. The way you prioritize yourself shows him that your heart is something to be valued, not played with. When you embody all of this, you don't pursue love. You attract it. You don't convince a man to choose you. You inspire him to. Because the truth is, love doesn't grow from pressure or persuasion. It grows from the quiet confidence of a woman who knows her worth so deeply that she never feels the need to chase what is already meant for her. When a man feels this energy from you, this grounded, calm certainty, he begins to see that loving you is not a responsibility or a risk, but a privilege. He understands that choosing you means choosing a life filled with depth, connection, and emotional richness. A man continues to fall in love when you give him space to breathe without making that space feel like distance. When you don't panic if he takes a moment to think, when you don't interpret silence as rejection, when you trust the bond instead of questioning it at every turn, you show emotional maturity that speaks louder than words. Men fall for women who allow them to be human, who understand that everyone needs reflection, solitude, and moments of internal alignment. And when he comes back from that space and finds you steady, confident, and secure, his trust in you grows even stronger. He falls in love when you challenge him in ways that sharpen his character, not his defenses, when you call him out with kindness rather than criticism, When you highlight what he is capable of instead of what he lacks, you become a catalyst for his growth. Men fall hardest for women who bring out their best, not by demanding it, but by believing in it. When he feels that your presence elevates him, he becomes emotionally anchored to you. A man falls more deeply when you allow yourself to be fully expressed. Your passion, your vulnerability, your courage, your softness. When you let him see the real you, not just the curated version you show the world, he begins to feel chosen in a way that touches his soul. Vulnerability is not weakness, it is connection. And when you open your heart with intention, not recklessly but bravely, you give him permission to open his too. He falls in love when you are consistent. The world is full of people who show up one day and disappear the next, people who say everything and follow through with nothing. But when you are steady in your words, dependable in your actions, and clear in your emotional presence, you stand apart. Consistency is one of the most underrated forms of attraction. And when a man feels that he can rely on you emotionally, mentally, and energetically, his commitment grows naturally. A man falls in love when you support his dreams, not by controlling them or sacrificing your own, but by walking beside him. When you show genuine interest in where he's going, what he wants, and who he aspires to become, he sees you not as someone who fits into his present, but someone who belongs in his future. He falls for the woman who encourages him to rise without losing sight of her own ascent. He falls in love when you hold your emotional ground, when disagreements don't turn into emotional warfare, when misunderstandings don't trigger threats of leaving, when conversations don't become battles for power. Emotional control is magnetic. It shows that you are guided by wisdom, not impulse. When you communicate with grace, even in frustration, he feels safe to stay, to work through difficulties, and to trust that challenges won't break what's being built. He falls in love when you celebrate small moments, when you make even ordinary days feel meaningful, when you find joy in a quiet morning, a shared meal, or a conversation that lasts longer than expected. Men fall for women who make everyday life feel alive, not because of dramatic gestures, but because of presence, the kind of presence that reminds him that love isn't found only in grand acts, but in the gentle, consistent moments that build a life. He falls deeper when you make him feel understood, when you listen not to respond, but to truly hear, when you acknowledge his emotions even when he struggles to articulate them, when you see the little boy inside him, the one who still carries wounds, hopes, dreams, and fears, and you respond with compassion instead of judgment. Feeling understood is one of the most powerful emotional experiences a man can have, and when he finds that with you, he does not forget it. A man falls in love when you don't compete with other women, because a woman who knows her worth understands that comparison is the enemy of confidence. You don't need to outshine anyone, you simply need to shine in your own lane. When you aren't threatened by what others bring to the table, when you don't fall into jealousy or insecurity, you radiate a level of confidence that becomes unforgettable. Men notice when you are secure in who you are, it makes them feel safe to be secure in who they are with you. He falls in love when you forgive with wisdom, not blindly, not repeatedly for the same mistakes, but with understanding. When you can acknowledge someone's humanity without losing your dignity. When you can move forward without carrying resentment like armor. Forgiveness becomes a powerful form of grace, and a man feels it deeply when he sees that your heart is strong enough to let go, but wise enough to remember what you deserve. A man falls in love when you express your needs clearly. Many women fear that communicating their desires will push a man away, but the opposite is true. Clarity creates safety. When you say what you want without guilt, without anger, and without hiding behind hints, he sees a woman who respects herself enough to ask for what feels right, and this invites him to do the same. Emotional transparency is the foundation of a strong connection. He falls in love when you bring optimism into his life, not blind positivity, but the kind that looks at challenges and says, "We can figure this out." When a man feels that you don't abandon him emotionally during hard times, when you bring light where there is doubt, he begins to associate you with resilience and hope. And hope is one of the most intoxicating forms of love. He falls in love when you maintain your individuality, when you don't lose yourself in the relationship, when your hobbies, passions, friendships, and goals stay alive. Men fall harder for women who remain whole, who continue to evolve, who stay interesting, who have layers they are still uncovering. Your independence is not a threat, it is a treasure that makes him value your presence even more. A man falls in love when you are kind, not just to him but to the world. When he sees how you treat people with dignity, how you speak gently even when you're tired, how you show empathy where others show impatience. Kindness is breathtaking. It reveals character in ways beauty never can. The right man doesn't fall in love with your face first, he falls in love with your heart. He falls deeper when you stay curious. When you ask questions, seek growth, explore ideas, and approach life with a sense of wonder. Curiosity is magnetic because it keeps a relationship alive. There is always something new to learn, something new to understand, something new to uncover. A curious mind keeps love exciting. He falls in love when you treat yourself like someone worth loving. When he sees how you honor your body, how you speak to yourself, how you set boundaries, how you live with intention. Self-love is not selfish, it is the blueprint. It teaches him exactly how to hold your heart. And ultimately, a man falls in love when being with you feels like coming home. Not because you fix him, not because you complete him, but because you match him, challenge him, inspire him, and connect with him on a level that transcends the temporary and touches the timeless. Transcends the temporary and touches the timeless. Because when a man reaches that point, when being with you feels like alignment instead of resistance, his love doesn't just grow, it stabilizes, it roots itself. It becomes something he protects, something he nurtures, something he chooses every single day, not out of obligation, but out of genuine devotion. And that devotion is born from the way you show up, the way you carry yourself, the energy you bring into his life. A man continues to fall in love when he feels that your presence brings him clarity instead of confusion. When you speak truthfully, when you express your feelings without making him guess, when you are transparent about your intentions, he finds comfort in your honesty. Men don't fall in love with mystery games, they fall in love with authentic clarity. When you create a safe emotional environment where he doesn't have to decode your every word or action, he feels grounded with you. That emotional stability becomes irresistible. He falls in love when you're gentle but not fragile, when you can be soft without breaking, compassionate without losing strength. There's a powerful beauty in a woman who carries grace with resilience, who can listen without losing herself, who can comfort without sacrificing her boundaries, who can love without abandoning her self-respect. That balance creates admiration. And admiration is one of the deepest entry points to a man's heart. A man falls deeper when you allow him to lead sometimes without making him feel controlled or emasculated, when you let him take initiative, when you value his input, when you let him feel useful and strong, he feels honored in your presence. And at the same time, when you lead in your own way, with wisdom, intuition, and emotional intelligence, you show him that partnership is not about dominance but balance. He falls for the dance between your strength and your softness. He falls in love when you know how to let moments breathe. Not every silence needs to be filled. Not every pause is a sign of disinterest. When you're comfortable with moments of quiet, when you allow stillness to exist between you without panicking, you create emotional space where connection grows naturally. Men value peace deeply, more than they ever admit out loud. And when he experiences that peace with you, something inside him settles. A man falls in love when you uplift his masculinity rather than challenge it out of insecurity. When you support his ambitions, acknowledge his efforts, and appreciate the role he wants to play in your life, you activate the part of him that wants to build a future. Too often, men feel like they must defend their value. But with you, he should feel like he can simply be. When he feels seen without having to prove himself, he bonds with you on a level that is both emotional and instinctive. He falls deeper when you are emotionally self-aware, when you take responsibility for your feelings instead of blaming him for every discomfort, when you communicate your needs with calm honesty instead of emotional explosions, when you regulate your emotions instead of allowing them to control the dynamic. This emotional maturity shows him that you're not just someone he can love, you're someone he can build with. A man falls in love when you're playful enough to break his seriousness. When you tease him lightly, smile with your eyes, flirt with intention, surprise him with the unexpected. Men often carry the weight of responsibilities silently. But when you enter his world with lightness, with energy that feels refreshing, he begins associating you with joy. Joy he didn't even realize he was missing. He falls in love when you have emotional patience, when you don't demand immediate transformation, when you allow the relationship to develop layer by layer, when you understand that men often reveal their hearts slowly, cautiously, and only when they feel safe. Emotional patience is not waiting endlessly. It's giving the relationship the time it deserves to unfold naturally. That patience makes a man feel worthy instead of pressured. A man falls in love when you're reliable, not perfect, not flawless, but someone he knows will show up when it matters. When you keep your promises, when your actions align with your intentions, when your words are backed by consistency, you become the person he can trust in a world full of uncertainty. Reliability builds emotional loyalty, and emotional loyalty creates unbreakable connection. He falls in love when you allow yourself to receive. Many women are incredible givers but struggle to accept help, affection, compliments, or acts of service. But receiving is a form of intimacy. When you allow him to give to you, whether it's support, time, effort, or love, you invite him into your world in a way that deepens the bond. Men fall in love through contribution, and they stay in love when that contribution is appreciated. He falls in love when you embrace your emotional depth without drowning in it. When you share your feelings honestly, when you express yourself with vulnerability, when you reveal your inner world with courage, you become unforgettable. Emotional depth creates emotional connection, and emotional connection is the heartbeat of lasting love. A man falls in love when you move with intention, not chaos, when your choices reflect your values, when you live in alignment with your standards, when you uphold your boundaries without needing to be harsh or defensive. This level of intentionality inspires respect, and respect from a man is the gateway to devotion. He falls deeper when you show gratitude for his effort, his presence, his thoughtfulness, his time. Gratitude softens a man. It makes him more generous, more attentive, more emotionally invested. When he feels appreciated, he feels motivated to give more. Gratitude is a quiet force that strengthens the bond in ways words cannot describe. A man falls in love when your energy feels like home, but your ambition feels like adventure. When you bring both comfort and excitement, both calm and passion, both warmth and challenge. This duality, this beautiful blend of predictability and spontaneity, keeps the relationship alive and evolving. He falls in love when you maintain your integrity, when you choose truth over temporary convenience, when you honor your commitments, when you live in alignment with the values you speak about. Integrity builds trust, and trust builds love. He falls in love when you let him witness your journey, when you share your battles, your achievements, your growth, when you let him see the woman you are becoming, not just the woman you already are. Growth is attractive. Self-evolution is magnetic. A man falls for a woman who continues to rise because loving her feels like moving forward, not standing still. He falls in love when you protect your inner peace, when you walk away from drama, when you don't entertain chaos, when you refuse to match low energy. Your peace becomes one of your most valuable qualities, and he will want to be a part of the life you're recreating, not add noise to it. A man falls in love when he feels emotionally safe with you, when he knows he can tell you his fears without being mocked, when he knows he can make a mistake without losing you, when he knows he can be human without being punished. Emotional safety is not softness, it's strength. And when he feels safe in your presence, his heart naturally gravitates toward you. He falls in love when you are his calm in the storm, his inspiration in the quiet moments, his partner in growth, and his equal in love. Because when a man meets a woman who elevates him, grounds him, inspires him, and embraces him all at once, he doesn't question the connection, he cherishes it.